Record.
Welcome. From Sudan. Thank you for joining us. Just to mention again, we will be recording the session and the link will be available to you all. Thank you. Just 1 more minute and then we will start. Thank you, the team from Nexus, for joining us. As we say in Kenya, karibu sana. I'm joining from Nairobi. Joining us from London. We have a very broad group of participants. Thank you for joining us. So as people continue to join, we can just continue posting in the chat and let us know where you are coming from. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Lena Cherotich, and I will be the moderator for today. Just maybe a very short introduction of myself. I am a public health specialist, and over the last years I've been focusing on adaptive learning, and for this specific project I've been working with CHC as the associate. Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. We will be, if you have any questions, you can keep using the chat box, using the Q&A question. Just quickly to go through the webinar objectives. Next slide, please. So would like to acknowledge the team here that was involved in this project. This project was supported by UKHIH and funded by UKAID. And as CHC, we were working in partnership with REACH Somalia, GREDO, ACTED, MCAN, and SADO. Next. Next slide, please. So just quickly to take you through the webinar objectives. The objective of this webinar is for us to share learning, our learning approaches and experiences from the project. We will also highlight the importance of tacit knowledge in the current context, including other settings beyond Somalia. So this project was implemented in Somalia, so we'll be able to look at other context as well. We were also able to document our learning insights, and we'll be able to present this, explaining to you where you can access them for more information. And we'll also be sharing with you the next step. Next. All right, just to get us started, as the rest of you keep joining us, again, keep posting on the chat, let us know where you're coming from. But just to get us started, we would like you to just share what your definition of tacit knowledge is. You can scan the QR code. Go back, please. The previous slide, kindly. The next one. Yeah. So the question is, what is your definition of tacit knowledge? We are curious to hear from you. You can either scan the QR code or just join through that link. It's also been posted on the chat. Let me know if you have any question or any problem accessing that. Let us know. What is your definition of tacit knowledge? Post it on the chat. Zainab will, as soon as we start to get responses, we'll have it posted on the chat. What is your definition of tacit knowledge? You can take a minute to do that. Thank you. Anybody having any issues accessing that? Zainab, are we seeing responses?
The
The link?
answers are coming through now.
Okay. So the link, okay, here's the link. Can post it on. You can post the link on the chat for everyone. I think it was posted on the panelist. You can post it to the chat for everyone kindly. We have it here. Thank you.
The answers are still coming through.
All right, we'll give it a few, maybe 2 more minutes, and then we can move on. I think, thank you, Ifra. I think you've also posted it in Somali for those who need to, so we can be able to access all the different process. Thank you. So the question is, what is your definition of tacit knowledge? The link is on the chat. Zainab, do you think we can get to hear what some of the responses are? You can post it on the chat kindly.
Coming through now.
Thank you. I see some comments. It's the intuitive, experience-based understanding. It's difficult to articulate or share and includes skills and insight gained through personal experience, such as riding a bike or instrument. That's tacit knowledge.
Can you see my screen now?
Coming up. All right, so thank you for your participation. We see it's personal knowledge, just to pick a few. It's difficult. It's individuals, very embedded and unique knowledge that each of us have, often naturally. It is held by one person, but not written down. So it's all similar. It's life. Difficult to articulate, personal knowledge based on experience. All right, we'll be coming back to this again. We can move on just to give you the overview of our agenda. So we will start with so in the next, actually starting now, we will be have an overview basically of the project. We will have a UKHIH representative, who was our donor, Adrian Tester, presenting that. And then we will move on to a short presentation about the project. This will be an overview from CHC, just highlighting how we approached the project and what we learned. We will then have our partners, learning partners from MCAN, SADO, REACH, and GREDO, who will be sharing their learning experiences as partners in this project. After that, we'll have at around 2:50 to 3 p.m., we will have learning insights, what you expect in the documentations that we've published. We'll be providing you with the content and the access link so you can be able to interact with that more. At around 3 p.m., East African time, we'll have a panel discussion. We are privileged to have 3 panelists who will be discussing and sharing their perspective on tacit knowledge. We'll have Mohammed, who's the Executive Director from SADO. We'll also have Peter Haley, who's the CHC Director, and Juliet Parker, who's the ALNAP Director. We will have, after that, we'll have a Q&A session about at 3:20 p.m. East African time. So please keep posting any questions you have in the chat so that we'll be able to answer them when we reach there. And then we aim to finish at around 3:50 p.m. East African time. All right. I will now invite our first speaker, Adrian Tester. Adrian is a UKHIH representative. UKHIH are the ones who funded this project. Adrian Tester is a senior research and learning manager at UKHIH with over 25 years of experience in applied research and adaptive learning across humanitarian contexts. So I will now welcome Adrian to give us a quick overview of this project. Over to you, Adrian.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Lena, and it's a pleasure to be here today. We're at a time where humanitarian organisations are increasingly committed to learning, and we have seen tremendous progress across the sector, but we do know that there still remains significant gaps, and that very much is in play with the relationships between evaluators and researchers on one hand, and then the frontline actors who have to apply that knowledge in the field on the other. As a result of this, organisations often miss really critical opportunities to address urgent needs more effectively, or to strengthen responses across the sector. And we were particularly interested in this at the UK Humanitarian Innovation Hub and partnered and co-designed with ALNAP. So for those that don't know, Juliet Parker will be speaking later, is an organisation dedicated to humanitarian learning. And we found something really striking, and that unplanned learning, much of which is grounded in tacit knowledge, is a vital source of insight. And the knowledge that people are carrying in their heads, and I saw on the Slido, people had identified this. And those lessons that are drawn from the direct experience, from navigating complex crises, and from a deep understanding of the local context, is often unwritten, difficult to capture, but it is essential. And this kind of learning really helps humanitarian actors adapt quickly when conditions change. And we've all seen recently that many of our stakeholders have had to pivot very quickly. So whether it's the shift in conflict dynamics or sudden climate shocks or unexpected community needs, it's often tacit knowledge that guides fast and practical decisions. And capturing these insights is absolutely key. This is why at UKHIH we wanted to understand and explore the role and impact of tacit learning in humanitarian decision-making much better, and commissioned Centre for Humanitarian Change to undertake this exploration. And we found that there is significant And this was done in partnership with NGOs in Somalia. And that's what brings us here today. So we're delighted to support the important work of CHC, as well as partners SADO, GREDO, MCAN, ACTED and REACH initiatives. And together, they're showing what it means to bridge research and practice and to ensure learning genuinely informs action in the field. So I've had a little exposure to the insights, but I'm really thrilled to be hearing it directly from the NGOs working in this project, and to discussing how we can keep learning together so that we can respond even better to crises. So thank you, CHC, for inviting us here today and for your commitment to this important area of work.
Thank you so much, Adrian, and for trusting us with this. I think for us, CHC is super excited to shine some light on this knowledge that's always, as someone said, the engine behind, the decisions. So thank you for that. Let's move on to the next slides, please. So now I'll come in and share how did we approach this project. Next one. Yeah. So as Adrian has already said, we partnered with partners from Somalia, and this was really a journey, and we learned quite a lot. Next. So that's just how we were seated. And going back to the question on what is tacit knowledge, yes, it's the lived experience, it's that practical know-how, and we all agree that it's learned through doing and definitely not easily documented or written or even at times explained. Yeah. But it is super important. Why is it important? It guides those real-time decisions. Most of us know when you're caught into, you could be in a meeting and you can quickly switch and know how to negotiate or engage with people on real time. And that is usually possible because of tacit knowledge. It drives responses through experience and not just plans. Yeah, so we may have many plans, but there's that bit of experience where you know what areas you can access or not, and we usually tap into that tacit knowledge, sometimes even without thinking. So yeah, it's definitely valuable because it uses real experience to guide real decisions, hence the importance of tacit knowledge. Next. So as CHC, we have done lots of work on learning, and our learning approach has been shaped and framed over time by various learning frameworks. We use the experiential learning called learning cycle. That can be, I think my colleagues can post it on the chat for those who want to know more about it. We've also had a lot of experience working with the USAID collaboration learning and adaptive framework, which is really important in the context we work in. So these principles that we have are what informs how we do learning, basically, or facilitate learning, or as learners, it informs how we design our projects. So just to quickly go through, we believe it has to be inclusive. By this we mean it's really creating spaces to have different voices, and this includes how we facilitate the approaches we use so that we can have multiple voices. If it means changing, ensuring the language is learner-centered, if it includes how we sit in the room, how we organize the session so that we're able to break those barriers that would otherwise exclude people. It's diverse. For us, it relies on having different people in the room or in the meeting or in the field, because it's not only used during workshops, it can be used in any space where there is interaction. So diverse in the sense that it relies on different types of knowledge. It relies on having different people in the room, not just who look like us. Yeah. So for instance, for the workshop, we had leaders, we had different organizations implementing in different geographies, and the idea was really to enrich the knowledge that was being shared. It's experiential in the sense that it's informed by the actions that we do. Yeah. So we're intentional to ensure that whatever we do in the workshops also is applied and using and reflecting again on what we learn from our actions. So what worked and what didn't work. We also focus on transferring it. As we know, sometimes you sit in a room and you have a very extensive discussion, but at the end of the day, is it applicable? So for us, it's important to look at what are some of those barriers that would prevent us from applying what we are learning on day-to-day basis. So this is something we also look at, and it's enabling environment. This a lot looks at the leadership as well. As we know, most for us to be able to transfer learning or even have discussions, we have to look at aspects of power dynamics. Yeah, are people safe to share and speak up and challenge and question? Are we ready to, as leaders, to say we don't know everything and be more inclusive in how we facilitate, whether it's meetings, whether it's workshops, whether it's all the different engagements that we have that are points of sharing knowledge. It's also learner-centered. This is really important because even as you design, whether it's your workshop, you want to be sure that the topics or the themes you're going to explore are relevant to whoever is going to be in the room. Yeah, so defining that from the outset is important. Next. So how did we organize this project? Next. It was a 3-month project, so quite tight between December and then we ended in February. So December 2024 to February 2025. And we all know how much the context changed within those 3 months. So what did we do? So the first phase we did was a consultative phase. This speaks a lot to defining who the participants are and what are the learning needs, ensuring that it is learner-centered. Okay, so we had a kickoff meeting with the leaders from the 5 organizations that we just talked about, and with them we were able to explore what they needed, what topics we needed to explore, right? Who needed to be in the room so that we can be able to maximize that diversity and inclusion. After which we developed specific tools that were able to help us facilitate the tacit learning sessions. Just to pinpoint, one of them was a find model, which I'll explain later, that was really useful in giving time and space to really have a more in-depth discussion on the knowledge that we were going to share. So how did we do this? After that, we had 3 interactive workshops. We had the first workshop was targeted at the leaders. Why? Because the idea was we wanted the leaders to not be just the participants, but also facilitators of the workshop. Again, it's about learning by doing. So we had 2 days with them in Mogadishu, and immediately after, we had a 2-day workshop with the rest of the teams, where now together with the leaders of these organizations, we created a space where we were able to transform that tacit knowledge into action through the discussions in the workshop. So the 2 workshop 1 and 2 were done within, it was really back to back within the same week. And then workshop 3 was implemented, I think, about a month after that. So we finished workshop 2 in end of January, and we had workshop 3 around mid-February. The objective of workshop 3 was, again, to look back at what worked. Yeah, what can we improve? What didn't work? Based on what we had agreed on. And we then use the information that we got to develop and disseminate learning insight, of which this webinar is one of them. Next. So I would like to just focus on this find model and why it was really important for us to develop this. It's based on the experiential learning models like the Kolb cycle, David Kolb's learning cycle. I think it's been posted there. It's based on the frameworks that I'd already talked about, the CLA framework, for instance. So the idea of this was to make the process of transforming the knowledge, as we said from the definitions, it's what we can sometimes articulate. It's in our heads. So how do you transform that into action for it to inform decisions? So we developed this to give us time and space, and to ensure that we are focusing on really sharing knowledge in a more I wouldn't say structured, but more intentional way. So just to quickly go through it, the focus is really picking up the experience. So there we were able to identify learning themes. Let me give an example. The team identified that they wanted to talk about collaboration. Yeah. And so we looked at it and we unpacked what that meant to the different partners, how they had experienced it, and what is it that they were missing, what did they want to know. So that was helpful in focusing the learning theme. Then we moved on to inquiring more and interrogating that theme. The point there was to be able to ensure that the different people in the room had space to share their ideas. We used different skills that would be able to evoke deep reflections, images, questioning, inclusive discussions. We had a point where we had everyone talking about power dynamics, and it was a whole session just agreeing, disagreeing, debating. But the point there was to allow that learning to be shared, allow space to get that learning from our experience, from our head into the room. So it was in sharing. After that, as you all know, sometimes the question is usually we share so much, but we don't take the time to really be aware of what's emerging, to be aware of what's new, to be aware of what are we learning. So notice there is about being intentional or noticing when we came to the room, we had this perspective, but having shared the knowledge, having shared our experiences, this is what is emerging. So the notice there was intentional to give us time to look at what was emerging, and having noticed what's emerging, then what would change? And that's the do part. So it would help inform the new actions, and even think of what would prevent us from applying what we are learning. Remember, again, we say transferring knowledge is usually you have to think about that during the session, because they could be structural things, it could be time, it could be where we're implementing. We have to look at what are those barriers that would prevent the team from applying what they had learned. Next. So I won't go through this so much because I just spoke about in the interest of time, but just to mention that additional strategies we used to ensure that we were really enriching the learning was, I'll just talk about language. We discovered that in the room, as much as most of us understood English, expressing that was a challenge. So we quickly had to adapt and ensure that participants were able to speak in the language that was accessible to them, because that alone can be a barrier. And that really changed the dynamics, because everyone was just speaking and sharing the experience in the way they could. So it wasn't so much translation, but it was letting them speak in that language as raw as it is. A lot about being open and adaptive, because I have different experience and you have we all have different experience. The idea was to create a space where it was okay. It was okay to share. It was okay to question. It was okay to deeply reflect and have, notice the barriers, remove the barriers. The seating arrangement was very important for us to remove barriers. As we all know, as soon as you have a table in front of you, it almost looks like a physical barrier, right? So removing that and creating a space where people are connected was really important for us. I'm highlighting this as some of the things we did during the workshop, but I believe that some of these things could be applied in any engagement where knowledge is being shared, whether it's in field visits, whether it's in your meetings, your routine meetings, in your periodic reviews. So these are some of the strategies that could be applied. So after we had done that, what did we learn? Next, please. So at this point, I would like to invite our learning partners to share their experiences, because they were in the room with us. So the first one to share the experience, please keep posting any questions on the chat. We'll be able to come back to that. So I'm going to invite Abdi Halim. I'm losing something. Yeah. So I'm going to invite GREDO's Abdi Halim Abdi Aziz Mohammed. He is a WASH manager with over 5 years of experience delivering sustainable water and sanitation solutions. He's skilled in project management, community engagement, and health-focused programming. So Abdi Halim, please, you can take it up from here. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Lina. Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are, it depends on. We are coming from different places, I know. Let me give you a brief about GREDO. GREDO is a national non-profit, non-governmental humanitarian and development organization headquartered in Baidoa, Somalia, with sub-offices across southern states. So GREDO was initiated in December 1992 by a group of Somali intellectuals and well-wishers in response to the needs of the community. Since 1992, GREDO has been at the front of emergency response, establishing operations in remote locations and also reaching those most in need with a geographical footprint spanning over 20 districts. During the workshop, Tacit knowledge, what we have learned from that workshop as GREDO was involving diverse forces, particularly local leaders, enriching our understanding of community needs, and helps navigate tensions by sharing peer experience. We tap into collective knowledge to identify challenges and opportunities. This collaboration fosters community ownership and ensures our intervention are relevant, impactful, and promote sustainable development. Please. Sorry. Sorry. So, sorry, Elena, can you say that? There are, of course, we applied that tacit knowledge after the training. And also we came up with 2 points. The number one was localization build practices. And the other one was adaptive conflict sensitivity. And during, as GREDO, we engage local elders to validate community compliance in Ginsor, which builds trust and credibility, while empowering local leaders in monitoring and evaluation. This crucially relevant approach fosters ownership, accountability, and sustainability in interventions. As well as in Baidoa, we applied adaptive conflict sensitivity by holding informal dialogue to ease tensions before distribution, addressing community concerns, fostering trust, and involving local stakeholders. Actually, it results in a smoother and more effective distribution process where a community felt heard and also valued. Next, please, Lena. Challenge. Actually, everything has challenge. So during the tacit knowledge, we realized that we may have some challenge, which power dynamics, not dedicated space, as well as language and framing. And actually, power dynamics and hierarchy among national actors is, in mixed consortia can embed experiences that challenge donor norms or assumptions, while daily operational dependence on often restrict the time available for informal or structured learning. So additionally, tacit knowledge often surfaces in histories or practices that are challenging to convert into formal reports or evidence. Lena, thank you very much. That's all from my end. So if any questions or comments, I'll be available. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abdi Halim. Please post your questions on the Q&A to the panelists, and then we'll be able to address that. I'll now. Unfortunately, Ismail. I don't know. Sorry, one of our.
Yeah, he's here, Lena. He's
okay.
Here.
All right. So the next speaker is Ismail Awo. Ismail is the program coordinator at MCAN. MCAN is Marginalized Communities and Advocacy. network. He's based in Nairobi with a background in social science and a focus on marginalized communities. Very passionate about that. MCAN, Ismail, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Ismail,
can you hear
can
me?
you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes,
can
go
hear you.
ahead, please.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you once again, all the members of this webinar. I will start with the greeting of Islam, peace and blessing upon you all. I really appreciate for God granting us this day. So my name is, as Lena mentioned, my name is Ismail Muhammad Awal, and I am the program coordinator. Sorry, I am the program coordinator of MCAN, Marginalized Community Advocacy Network. So I wanted to highlight a little bit about MCAN and what they does. So when it comes to MCAN, it was founded back in 2006 when there is a lot of issue regarding of marginalization, minorities, and Somalis, the civil conflict is those groups, militant groups. So there's a lot of rascals and a lot of upside downs. So, and there was a need to advocate for those vulnerable communities among the vulnerables, because even at that time, even the other Somalis, the majority or minority, also they were the vulnerable because of those civil war and the impact. So MCAN was created for the purpose for advocating for those more marginalized and also excluded communities, so that we can advocate for the most vulnerable communities among society, like women, children, disabilities, and also those minority and indigenous groups. When it comes to our scope, we have the mandate to operate all the states in Somalia. When it comes to Hirshabelle, when it comes to Jubaland state, when it comes to Southwest Somalia, and when it comes to Benadir or Mogadishu. Our headquarters is based in Mogadishu, and we have an office also in Nairobi, and we have sub offices in Baydabo, Beledweyne, Kismayo, and Johar also. So actually, when it comes to areas that we focus mostly.
Sorry, Ismail. Thank you. We posted also your LinkedIn links about MCAN on the slide. If you can just move, we're trying to cap. Thank you. I know you're passionate about that.
Okay.
Let's just move on to the learning. Thank you.
Okay. I thought the 5 minutes, 1 minute. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So yes, so let me go to the slide. Thank you, Lena, for reminding me the time. So what we have learned about the Tacit workshop that we have participated, and actually Tacit knowledge allowed us engagement of diverse groups of people. We had partners with different experience and roles in the room. So when it comes to language inclusion, we had people who are perfect in terms of Mai and also in Mahatiri. So we had also Bravinese. We have also some Bajuni, and we have learned that there is different accents and different languages within Somalia. So that's what we realized during the workshop, and we accepted together. So the other thing was use of participant preferred language. So we have every person was given his preferred language to speak, whether it's Mai or Mahatiri. So and even people were speaking English as the general language, but every person was given the opportunity to express his feelings for the language that he prefers. So also use of interactive tools. So what was new was about using those pictures, those cards, posting the cards. So it was something which is like kind of foreign to us, because some of us didn't get used to it. Because I remember when displayed this workshop to one of my colleagues when we were arranging a sitting. So he told me that this thing we have seen in the Netflix movies. So it's a very interesting and it's very simplistic way of learning. So, but for us, we didn't get used to it. So when it comes to what we applied, So we applied when it comes to seating arrangement, it was something unique. We make a cycle so that there was no borders. You can engage every person, everyone. So it was simple for you to navigate within the workshop. And yes. Okay, next slide. Yeah. So the other thing is challenges. When it comes to challenges, what we have learned about tacit knowledge and what it has empowered to us was when it comes to funding. We know as the challenges that we are undergoing through the whole world, or when it comes to Somalia, which is limited funds and limited resource, while the gap is very huge. So what tacit knowledge empowered us was working as a consortium, applying a possible proposal as a consortium, and we did such things. We have applied a project, no project in Johar together with NRC, Islamic Relief. So that's what we have learned from, and the takeaway that we took from applying together instead of individual organization applying for a certain project, which they are likely to miss because of the limited funds. So we were sharing the capacity and the ideas and working as a team. So that was one of the most important things that we have learned from tacit knowledge. So when it comes to insecurity, it was like funding. So what tacit knowledge taught us was skills of funding, or fund mobilization, resource mobilization. So in Somalia, we know due to the insecurities, you cannot bring a lot of people together. So that was one of the challenges that we had. You cannot bring a lot of people, and the government issues, yeah, like police issues. So they will ask you a lot of questions regarding, because it's not something that we used to do it. So it is something new to us, but it was very useful for knowledge and sharing the knowledge with our team so that they can apply the place that it is possible. So the other thing was slow adoption and old habits using open space seating. So as I mentioned, when I applied the tacit in our office, because we had members that we have invited. So I made the exactly example that we learned from tacit knowledge. So my friend told me that this thing is like foreign to us. So it is very foreign to us because people get used to, they had a table in front of them where they can put their stuff and write. But this thing, it has no inside, there is no borders. So if it is a way of cycling. So it is like old way of learning, like where we used to sit under the tree. So people will make cycle and discuss issues. So that was something new to us. And what I will say finally about tacit knowledge, it was very brief, and it was very useful. And actually, we would like to receive more of tacit knowledge so that we get that knowledge and we can share with our teammates, co-workers, and also our senior team, so that we can apply. And also, it requires a lot of tools, so we require also those tools and those knowledge so that it will change the culture that we get used to it. So if there is no next slide, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ismaila. I know we joked before about how much we come from oral societies. So trying to manage it's a good way of actually sharing tacit knowledge. We're able to speak a lot. Anyway, I would like now to invite Mohammed Ibrahim Musa. Mohammed Ibrahim Musa is from SADO. He's the program manager at SADO, and he oversees implementation and coordination of humanitarian programs in Somalia. Mohammed, please go ahead, and we'll post on chat about SADO for more information. Go ahead. Mohammed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lena. I'm sorry my voice might not be too much projecting, but I greetings to everybody, the organization, the audience, and the colleagues. So from this workshop, the tacit learning, what we learned as a SADO was the hallmark of intentional inclusion of diverse forces sharing tacit knowledge is, we learned that it's a process, not a one-time thing. So it requires one to intentionally think of who needs to be engaged, and in the process, not always the same people. So that intentional and purpose planning of inclusion, it address the existing barriers, the power dynamics, and due to barriers, the language used, and being conscious on how we speak is something we were grateful as a takeaway from the workshop as a SADO. It's also the mindset sense of that we don't know everything, but we as service providers and conveyors. The other takeaway that the Tacit learning workshop battled with us is the tackling existing barriers, the gatekeepers, the power dynamics, the language we use. We also require to be paid attention, and this had allowed us to be open-minded on the approach in our engagement, and also reducing the prescriptive representation or presentations when engaging with communities, or co-creating with communities at all bases of groups, or all groups that as SADO we work and engage to, be it all the groups. The third point that we battled with from the workshop is the mindset shift, where after the workshop, we came from us seeing ourselves as facilitators, and tacit knowledge requires one to facilitate and sieve and mix all the information and all the knowledge that exists with everybody that our services, our engagements reach to. So all of those, what we applied so far is staff feedback sessions where SADO staff who have participated in the workshop were able to come back to the organization and transfer the knowledge received. Also, to that, we transcended to the communities and the groups that we worked with at local level and co-created with them. Reflections and outcomes, from the workshop, we can say it has improved participation and trust with the communities. It will also enable us to have an inclusive stakeholder engagement beyond gatekeepers, and also tacit knowledge is something to be valued at all corners. From the packet shot, I will say that tacit knowledge must be surfaced. It's not one person show. It requires sharing it with others who all have experiences and evidence and knowledge. If we keep to ourselves, it's not useful. So we should value tacit knowledge and share with everybody. We reach out the humanitarian space, and also others who are different from us, the government, the communities, and every one that comes under that banner that organizations are engaged to or treat them out. So that's all. I will summarize our learning. I hope I have come to time for any reflections, questions, and suggestions. I will be happy to make it. Thank you so much, Lena.
Thank you, Mohammed. And I would just encourage the attendees, the participants, please post your questions so that we'll be able to address them as soon as done. I will now invite our last speaker, who will be able to share with us his learning experience. This is Hajir Hussein. Hajir works with Reach Somalia as a field manager. He has over 8 years leading humanitarian research in Baidoa, Kismayo, and Mogadishu. Is expert in access analysis and community-informed evidence-based programming. Hajir, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lana, for the introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I think before I proceed to the next slide, let me introduce Rich for those less familiar with our mandate. Rich is a leading humanitarian initiative dedicated to producing granular data, timely information, and rigorous analysis in context of crisis, displacement, and disaster. As a joint initiative of Impact, Acted, and the UNOSAT, our mission is to ensure that humanitarian decision-making is driven by reliable, accessible, and context-sensitive evidence. Our assessments are designed and implemented in close collaboration with interagency coordination structures at both national and field level to enable more effective and response programming. So that is Rich. Let me come to what Rich maybe gained from the learning experience. What we learned, tacit knowledge exchange is both necessary and transformative. Cross-level, cross-contextual exchange, trust and informal learning, mentorship and peer learning, breaking institutional silos, and the contextualization of knowledge. I think those are the few points we come up with the learning experience of the Tacit workshop. Next slide, please. Okay, what we applied, expand our collective understanding, access, and the coordination in Somalia, rethink how we design assessments, define indicators, and triangulate findings, and strengthen rich research mandate. So here, maybe if I can elaborate a bit more when it comes to understanding of access. Previously, we thought access, when we are talking access, or maybe these kind of things, we have been talking only infrastructure, logistical barriers, and these kind of things, but also we have learned there's other barriers like political, maybe service providers and the populations that we need to reach. We are not only talking about maybe how we can reach the population, but also how maybe the population can reach to the service providers. So these are the kind of things we have also learned, and these are the kind of strength we get from the tacit learning knowledge. Then parting shot, while data and evidence over the structure and logical for humanitarian planning, it is a tacit knowledge, the wisdom-born experience that gives our work meaning and relevance. Thank you. If there is any question or any comment, you are welcome. Hand over to you, Lena.
Thank you so much, Hajir, for expounding on how we were able to broaden our understanding of things like access just by sharing knowledge. The next thing now is just to quickly highlight the documents that we would like to share we've published. These are the learning insights. And I would like to welcome Ifranur. Ifranur is a communication and engagement strategist. She has over 7 years in advocacy and adaptive learning. She's an expert in inclusive storytelling, facilitation, and community-led dialogue, and she's based in Somalia. Ifra.
Thank you, Lena. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure for me to be here with all of you and to be part of this amazing work that we were all working on. As Lena mentioned, a key component of this project was to document and to really capture the insights and also disseminating it. But it was not only just for the purpose of documenting or reporting purposes, but to have something that is practical, that humanitarians can use, reflect, and adapt in their own work and their own context. So At CHC, and in my role specifically as a communication lead, we worked with the learning partners to make sure that we capture those insights throughout the whole project activities. So from the beginning, the core designing of the workshops, to the 2 workshops that happened in Mogadishu, and all the way to post-workshop reflections. There were a lot of insights that we were picking on, that we were seeing, observing, and also hearing from our learning partners. And what we did was to collect all those rich insights and then look into it. And we noticed that there's patterns, there's ways that these insights flow. So we decided to place them into 3 key learning themes that will be easy for humanitarians and for learners to actually grasp the insights that we have captured throughout the project. The 3 learning insights, rather the key 3 learning themes, were focused on 3 main issues. That was collaboration, adaptation, and enabling environment. How these factors could influence learning, particularly learning on tacit knowledge, and how can organizations ensure that these factors are considered when they are learning about tacit knowledge. So what have we done currently? We were able to create shorthand stories. So shorthand is a platform. It's more of like a web blog, but more interactive. And we have created 4 stories for these key learning themes. The first one is a summary of the project. We looked into the objectives, our partners who we were working with, and then we had 3 other learning themes that I was mentioning right now. One for collaboration, one for enabling environment, and the other for adaptation. So currently we have them in English language and also in Somali language, but the Mhatiri dialect only for now. But that we are also working on the My dialect, which will be live within this week. Next slide. Yeah, this is just a screenshot of how the shorthand story looks. Next slide. I would like to take you through the shorthand and just to give you a feel of how it looks once you go and read through these stories. So it's the same. Whatever we have created for the English version, it's also created in the Somali. I mean, in the English language, it's also created in the Somali language. Whereas in Somali, we have 2 dialects. As Lena mentioned, it was really important for us to appreciate the different languages within the room. And also now that we are sharing the learning insights that we got from the workshops and from this project overall, it was important for us to put it in a language that most humanitarians working in Somalia could understand. And for that case in Somalia is the 2 dialects, which is the Mhatiri and the My dialect that we are working on. Yes, so thank you so much, Vega, for clicking that. As you can see, can you go up, please, at the beginning of the page? So this, currently what you're seeing is the introduction page, or in the introduction shorthand story. That's how it looks like. We have the title, and then we have pictures and text that explains the project. This is just to give you a bit familiarity on how it looks like, because most of the people are not really familiar with the shorthand platform. You can scroll down. We have videos from the session. So we have a lot of interactive elements to our stories. We have videos, we have photos. We really want the readers of these shorthand stories or these learning themes to understand and to really feel the moment that we had during the workshop sessions that happened in Somalia with our learning partners. So yeah, as you can see, we have the learning themes. Scroll down, Vega, please. And then at the bottom now you see the learning themes. You can click on any one of among any of these links, please. So we had, once you click on that specific theme, it will take you to the specific theme for that. And then now you'll get all the information and all the practical examples and practical guidance on for that specific theme. So for now, we are having we are looking at the collaboration theme. We have clips and audios and images and some tools that give more information on that particular theme. So I would also like to do one of the Somali version just to give them how it looks like. Can you click on the Somali one? Yeah, so it's the same, as you can see, that the same structure and the same design, just difference in language. And for the videos, they're all translated where there is a Somali, where there's someone speaking another language other than Somali, we have it translated in both dialects. So yeah, it's also the same. So now the question will be, who are we creating these stories or these insights for? We have worked with our learning partners. We have captured these insights from our interaction with them and from our overall experience of doing adaptive learning trainings at CHC. But overall, we want all the humanitarians working in Somalia and beyond to benefit from these insights. As I mentioned earlier, this is a practical tool, not a fixed one. You can still adapt it to your context, to your truth, to your organization and individually. But we want this to be something that you look up to everyone, every now and then, that when you are talking about tacit knowledge, when you want to practice tacit knowledge learning within your teams, that this could be a guidance and a practical tool that you can refer and make sure that you are harnessing the tacit knowledge within your teams and within your organizations. The links will be posted in the chat. I think my colleagues are also doing that right now. Thank you so much, Lena. And if there's any question, you can put it in the chat and I'll address it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ifra, and also for managing with the time. Just to say that the links to these shorthand stories are in the chat. And please, any questions you have, post them on the chat and we'll be addressing them soon. So now we move on to the panel discussion, and I'm delighted to invite our first panelist. So we'll have three panelists. We have Mohammed Hussein, who's the SADO Executive Director. He's the one who will start us off. Then after we'll have Peter Haley, the CHC Director, and then Juliet Parker. So just a little bit about Mohammed. So Mohammed is Executive Director of SADO. He possesses a wealth of experience in project management, strategic planning, training, and development. So he will be able to share his tacit knowledge perspectives more from the national non-governmental organization, SADO. Over to you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Lena. Thank you very much for having me, and greetings to you wherever you are. I would like to start by thanking the presenters who have really enlightened us this afternoon. I would also like to thank the panelists, the organizers of the webinar. I'm sure there's a lot that has gone into this, and we really want to say thank you. I would like to add my voice as one of the participants, one of the recipients of this training, and having gone through both sessions, I think there is a lot that I have learned. When it comes to perspectives, what comes to my mind is the parable of the blind men, or were they women? Well, I think mostly it goes as 7 blind men who wanted to learn by touching an elephant, what it looks like, what it is. The story actually illustrates how limited perspective can lead to incomplete understanding of a complex situation. I can say that tacit knowledge or tacit learning is a complex situation, a complex undertaking. But I must also add that in Somalia, it is part of everyday life. If I look at, for example, the pastoralists and how they manage their rangeland, they are able to recognize the seasons and the grazing routes for their camels and sheep and goats by observing the changes in the vegetation and the soil. They are able to say now, we need to move out of this place and move to a certain other place. They are also able to judge the health of their herd and anticipating that a disease outbreak may occur, and they move out of a place, move to another one. There are a lot of examples from the Somali community, including the coastal fishing, how they are able to tell about the maritime without using any systems. The examples are very many. But to go into my bit that I wanted to add to what has been presented this afternoon, we want to acknowledge that tacit knowledge cannot be imparted through the formal instruction media, the schooling. It is not possible. It has not been possible. It must be learned through experience, through intuition, and through informal exchanges with the community. And that knowledge is what is supposed to better inform what we do as we interact with the community. Embedding tacit knowledge can transform decision-making, in my view. It can foster more agile solutions. However, the difficulty is in translating tacit knowledge and the know-how into actionable guidance and overcoming systematic barriers across funding, localization, collaboration, and efficiency, especially for the team that has come together under the umbrella of ACTED as a consortium. In terms of funding, I am yet to come across an organization that has a line budget that says that this is for tacit learning, for documented tacit learning, or for using any other purpose, but to do tacit knowledge, to harness tacit knowledge. If it is there, probably it is coming as an afterthought. There is no dedicated staff to undertake the documentation or getting the tacit knowledge from the field. However, opportunities are there. I think we need to advocate for grant windows that will incentivize peer-to-peer knowledge transfer and the integration of tacit learning budgets into our project cycles. As we do our M&E, we also need to think about how we can bring on board the gathering of tacit knowledge from the field. On challenges to do with funding, there is emphasis on short-term gains and camera-ready solutions. Some of this is donor-driven. They want quick solutions, and I will put it in terms of business language, that we need quick returns on investment. So to say, there is also competition for limited funds, which unfortunately favors the INGOs over the local actors. Sometimes the application process is complex and the reporting requirements discourage smaller organizations. On localization, there is a policy mismatch between action and policy. There is a mismatch. Policy pronouncements are very loud at the global stage, but this does not reflect any meaningful engagement on the ground. There is still the power dynamics between INGO and local NGOs. Sometimes we say it is locally based and locally led. However, when you go deeper, you find that the backbone of that is actually non-local actors. On the issue of collaboration, there is a lot that can be gained by amplifying, for example, the gains that we have made on tacit knowledge, and deliberately take action and recognize and bring it into partnership. And recognize partnerships that recognize the tacit knowledge, learning, and engagement with the community. We need more workshops like this and webinars like this, as organized by CHC and the UKHIH. This will help us to get us out of our silos and start learning and have something to share. Opportunities are there. We need to have after action reviews. We also to include our mandates in terms of sharing the tacit knowledge. We also need to increase our learning cycles and also try to facilitate and help in the dissemination of tacit knowledges. However, when people come together, institutions come together, there could be some rivalries here and there. There may be lack of open communication, but the gains are more important than the rivalries and the other short-term gains that we may achieve. There are also difficulties in attributing learning outcomes to collaborative interventions. However, there is a lot of opportunity in terms of efficiency if we try to harness this further by coming up with rapid learning sprints and integrate it into our operations without necessarily overburdening the field staff or the frontline staff. We also need to gather data from the field, crunch this data, and ensure that we have analytical dashboard that are able to give, that are able to translate this knowledge into some quantitative metrics. Real-time mobilization of tacit knowledge can shorten feedback loops, and that will enable faster and more decentralized decision-making and resource reallocation. I believe these are some of the issues that we need to address as we move forward from this workshop, and as we take this to the next level. My final thoughts are that overcoming the challenges of tacit learning in humanitarian work requires intentional design, cultural shifts, and practical tools that fit in the realities of the crisis. However, forcing tacit knowledge into rigid formats can strip it of its importance and the utility of it. It is better that this tacit knowledge comes naturally and it is used without any coercion or without any diversion of issues. Finally, I would say that we need to start using lightweight mobile tools for voice note capture from the field observations. Thank you very much. And any questions are welcome.
Thank you, Mohammed. See, you're quite passionate about that. And so thank you also. I'm seeing you're starting to post your questions. We're just coming to that in a few minutes. I would like to invite our second panelist, Peter Haley. Peter Haley is the CHC director, and he will be talking about tacit knowledge in the current context. So hopefully he can start to answer some of the questions that I'm seeing. He specializes in learning systems, adaptive programming, and locally led humanitarian solutions. Peter, take the floor.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question to all the attendees. Be honest with yourself. In the last 6 months, how many times have you written that we need to do localization because local people have a much better understanding of the context? And when you've written that, have you thought really about how you can do that? Next, please. Next slide. Next, please. This is not just you who's been talking about localization and getting more of the contextual knowledge from the local level, from communities, from staff that work at the local level. In the reset, it's mentioned as being about more equitable partnerships. What does equitable mean? And it's talking about basing those partnerships on trust and recognition. Next, please. In the Near Network press release or blog on the 16th of June, they were talking about coordination rooted in local realities and co-creating response systems from design to decision-making. What does that actually mean practically to you in your day-to-day work as an organization, whether you're a local organization or an international? Next, please. And the ICFA Humanitarian Reset Facts has been talking about decentralizing coordination through area-based coordination to empower local leadership. What does that mean? And we think that it's tacit knowledge, which is one of the main foundations of building equitable partnerships, co-creating response systems from design to decision-making, and empowering local leadership of the response. Next, please. Next, please. So what happened with our project was when the funding was cut, the mentoring, peer learning, informal exchange were the first to go from people's, not just from their budgets or their projects, but also from the kind of attention that they usually pay to talking to their staff or talking to their partners, local partners, communities, and so on. A lot of those types of activities were deprioritized in the last few months. We're now at a stage where we can start getting past the stage of making ourselves a little bit more resilient, a little bit more able to deal with less funding. And we need to go back to thinking about how do we reinvigorate the way that we're working towards localization and towards including local actors in decision-making. Next, please. But if we are serious about this local leadership and a contextual response that's based on trust in partnerships, these are the things that make it work. Next, please. So tacit knowledge isn't an add-on, it's how power actually shifts in practice. So a lot of what you've heard before from minority organizations, from local NGOs, and from international NGOs who took part in this project is that what they experienced during the workshops was how power, even within their own organizations, between their leaders and the people who are working on the ground, how power shifts when you create a trusting environment, where you create a place by language, by the way that you facilitate the project. You can make power shift from I think it was my colleague from SADO who was saying that we realized as leaders that we weren't the experts, we were the facilitators of this knowledge and the facilitators of turning that knowledge into action. Next, please. So what we need to do is think now about designing for context and realizing that it's not through the normal kind of cluster type of coordination that this happens. It's through recognizing that at the local level, the local actors, they have the capacity and they have the tacit knowledge that can bring context into your planning and into your adaptation to the context. So we often talk about local and we think about communities, but we also don't spend enough time thinking about inside of our organizations. Even if you are a local NGO, inside of your organizations, you have a huge pool of tacit knowledge, which is often not appreciated, not trusted, and not included in the way that we adapt and develop our programs. And to do that, you need to think about the relationships and the processes within your organization, creating reflective space and making sure that it's an equitable exchange between the different parts of your organization. And it doesn't just rely on reports or research or trainings. In consortia, this is one of the most difficult areas to get things to work. It's to create that trust and space to share experience. In the consortia that we worked with, the consortium of ACTED, there was a moment in the workshops where suddenly they realized what the value was of, for instance, MCAN, representing and talking about and offering an opportunity to connect much better with minorities and marginalized groups in Somalia. And then in networks such as Nexus, I think there's colleagues from Nexus in Somalia on this call, or even in area-based coordination and local networks. By thinking about tacit knowledge and by thinking about how you facilitate that and create the space and trust for those sort of exchanges, then you create a much better level of collaboration, not coordination in the way that we define it at the moment. And out of that exchange comes a better program. Next, please. Next, yeah. So one of the things that I'm particularly worried about at the moment with the rollout of area-based coordination is that we're focusing on coordination in the sense that we've been doing it before, the 5 Ws and those types of things, and not concentrating on how we use those opportunities to make space for collaboration, make space for co-design, and making sure that it's tacit knowledge that leads, not some kind of policy or guidelines or report that's coming from above. Next, please. 4 things we've learned on this particular project is that tacit knowledge and its value in making your programs better and helping you to adapt and be more flexible is that it's in the people, it's not in the products like the quarterly reports to donors or the types of weekly reports or monthly reports that we usually do. And we don't need to create anything. We don't need to try and get tacit knowledge onto paper. We just have to recognize that we need to create the space and support people talking about what they think is they're seeing in the field. It's about trust, not just tools. So it's not about CHC producing tools so that you can facilitate better. It's about building trust with the people that you're working with. It's about adaptive learning, which is about giving time for people to reflect and share. But also, if you remember Lena presenting the model before, it's about how do you transfer that learning, that tacit learning, and into action and adapt together. Next, please. And a lot of people have talked about tacit knowledge being overlooked. It is overlooked in funding and in coordination, but it's not something that is only reliant on funding, and it's not something that's only reliant on tools. It's reliant on you as leaders to make that space happen. And without doing that, then your efforts to shift the power from even within your organization will continue to fall short. Next, please. Okay, over to you, Lena.
Thank you so much, Peter. I think you've started to help answer some of the questions that were just being posted. Everybody's looking into the current context and how tacit knowledge fits in. So I'm also very delighted to invite our last speaker, but last but not least, Juliet Parker. So Juliet Parker is director of, sorry. Yeah, so Juliet Parker is director of ALNAP. where she coordinates strategy and ensures coherence in ALNAP work and impact. She has over 20 years of experience in humanitarian programming and senior level strategic management in NGOs, with a particular focus on performance and monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. Juliet, please, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being invited to this conversation, which has been so rich. So I work for ALNAP, with a learning network for the humanitarian sector. And we did a study on tacit knowledge about 3 years ago, which is very interesting, and I'm happy to put the link in the chat. But one of the things that I found most interesting at the time was that we really struggled to get people interested in the study or to generate much of an audience for the conversation, which is one of the reasons why I'm so delighted that there's been such rich conversations today. I'll just make a few comments because people have said an awful lot of what I was going to say before and have said it extremely well. But one thing that I really want to point out is that the humanitarian sector is falling far short of capitalizing on the learning that exists within the sector. At a time when we see resources reducing, there's a duty and an onus on us to really make the most of what we have rather than focusing too much energy on what we don't have. And learning, we are rich as a sector in learning, but falling far short of making use of it, as many people have pointed out. And looking at a system level, diversifying the learning base, diversifying the and increasing the inclusion of the learning voices within the sector is really important, both from an ethical perspective about whose voice counts, but also pragmatically. There is simply too slim a proportion of humanitarians in the sector contributing to and accessing the shared knowledge base, which means as a sector, we will not be able to evolve and develop as we need to in order to be able to deal with the challenges that we're being faced with now. Abdelhalim, I think, summarized some of the challenges to tacit learning very well on one of his slides, so I'm going to borrow from him. The first of his points was around power dynamics. There's a reason why there's a slim proportion of the sector contributing to the knowledge base, and that's partly because of where resources are being put. The majority of flexible financing is still, the majority of it is going to the global northern institutions, and that's where the learning investment therefore sits. And until we address that imbalance, we won't be able to kind of rebalance the learning narrative within the sector. The second is to point out that learning and change is happening all the time at a project level. There is high levels of learning, adaptation and change happening, but what's not happening is it's not filtering up in a way that can really impact and shape the mainstream sector. So it goes largely ignored and is largely invisible to the sector. Also, within our sector, the sector incentivizes predict and control approaches to learning because that's what enables organizations to look competitive and to feel strong in their learning approaches. And it's not true. That's just not how learning happens. Learning is ad hoc and messy and chaotic in the way that and very difficult to plan for. And that's why I think the emphasis on spaces, Peter was talking about it just now, is really important. We need to create more space for ad hoc learning interactions to happen because learning is fundamentally a human interaction and you can't always manage for that. The second point that Abdelhalim made was about there being no dedicated space. One of the things that we did at ALNAP a couple of years ago was audience research on how we could improve the evidence base for how humanitarians learn. And we found there was almost no evidence base for this. So we did a first audience survey. And what we found was that the vast majority of humanitarians, particularly those involved in operations and implementing, read very little and rely very heavily on interpersonal interactions, and that's throughout the sector. So this lack of focus on tacit knowledge is, of course, a particularly acute problem or challenge at the local and national level, but actually it's true across the sector. And so that emphasis on spaces rather than processes to enable learning is really important. Also, we're fighting a tide in our project contract structures within the sector. They are skewed heavily towards delivery. and leave very little space. They squash the space, particularly at the project delivery level, which means that organisations who are serious about tacit knowledge and tacit learning, of which is quite difficult to find many examples at the moment, have to proactively resource and create those spaces because they won't happen on their own. And the other is, and again, I think Peter referred to this, the issue of adaptiveness. Even when we are able to capture, recognise and respect the learning that exists, it's very difficult for organisations to have the adaptive space to be able to make the changes within their projects in order to address that. And then the last point I wanted to make was on language and framing. So tacit knowledge just is not respected as well as more traditional, researchy, northern kind of forms of knowledge. And until we can address that within our cultures and structures, we will continue to miss out on this highly valuable learning, concepts of, and we face it within ALNAP as well, is it rigorous enough? Is it high enough quality evidence? And we actually have to challenge those, throughout our conversations. Because tacit knowledge is really important. It is actually the richest form of learning in our sector. I'm quite sure about that. But it does not sit easily with the power dynamics and the business model of the humanitarian sector. And that means that we need to actively champion it. But I think we have to champion it collectively, because we mustn't be naive about the fact that learning and knowledge is political, same as all other power structures within our sector and within our working worlds. And until we are able to really create more space for tacit knowledge and tacit learning, we will be doing ourselves a disservice within the sector, and we won't be able to evolve in the way that we need to address the challenges that are coming. And that's why studies like this are so important, and it would be great to see more and to improve that knowledge base, because one of the other studies we've done in ALNAP about how learning and change happen in the sector shows us that we need the evidence base. We also need the opportunity for change. And I think that the shifts that are happening now in the locally led discussions are a really important opportunity for that. But we also need the movers and shakers. So we need people who are able to champion and navigate the changes that need to happen and make the case for tacit knowledge in a really vocal way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Very, very useful insights there. So we've started to get questions. We now move to the question and answer session. Please, if you'd like to ask your question live, you can just unmute yourself, raise your hand, virtual hand, and then we will be able to give you a chance. But meanwhile, we have some questions that have already been posted. I'll start with Peter. The question we have for you, 1 second. Yes. So the question for you, Peter, is one of the participants mentioned how hard it is to be intentional about creating spaces for learning and sharing tacit knowledge in day-to-day humanitarian response operations. The question is, he thinks this would ring true for many across different types of crisis. So the question is, what are some of the specific tactics for overcoming this? Peter.
Yeah, I mean, very, very simply, just ask yourself how many meetings you have in a month with your teams or with your partners, and how many hours you spend in those meetings and writing the reports afterwards. Each one of those meetings has become somewhat of a ritual connected to the kind of delivery model and business case that we have at the moment that Juliet was talking about. All of you can think back to the last meeting you had, where there was a lot of time spent on pretty much giving a situation analysis or a kind of progress report of each person's particular program or particular organization. Within those spaces, those meeting spaces, with a little bit of change of the agenda, with some facilitation skills of how to build trust and how to build connections within those meetings, there are, even in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, there are tremendous opportunities to explore things. To give you an example, often in a report, in a meeting, after we said what we've been doing and what our output numbers are, then we say what our challenges are, but we don't take the time to examine what those challenges are and what it actually means and how we're going to address those challenges. So even in a donor report, at the end of the donor report, they ask you to write what the challenges are or what some of the learning is. But I've read 1 million of those reports, and they're the most boring parts of the report that nobody actually reads, because it's right at the end of the report, and by the time they've reached there, they've given up. So if you can even just change that part of your meeting or that part of your report to make sure that you're thinking about what is your experience, what do you think are the best ways to address those challenges or those lessons learned, and bring in a much more diverse group of people to discuss about them. Make sure that the people in the meeting are from much wider than just your usual characters. If it makes sense, invite someone as a special attendee for a particular issue that's coming up in that meeting, and just try and get as diverse a group of people together and build the trust within the workshop. None of those cost extra money. None of those need extra human resources. They just need you to be able to, as a leader, create that space in the things that you're already doing. Back to you, Lena.
Thank you, Peter. Indeed, it's a culture of doing business, as we say. Yeah. So I would like now to ask Mohammed is a question for you. It's a bit, I think this has been partly answered by Peter. We would like you to reflect on one, how you are able to use tacit knowledge in response to the USAID funding, all the different changes that happened in the last month. Yeah, so how are you able to apply tacit knowledge there? And then in addition to that, you could also comment on examples of how you can make it possible for people to share their tacit knowledge from the field in a simple way. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Lena. And I think I saw another question on what else do we require apart from funding. Maybe I will start with that. I think there are too many Mohammeds in the room. Let me be the one to answer that question. Recently, we were in the field with my colleague, and we were making some visits to farms, and we came across some pests that are really ravaging their tomatoes and onions and maize. And our agronomist was able to identify what pests they are and what the solutions were there. Of course, what came to our mind mostly was to look for pesticides. But I said, wait a minute, how are they dealing with these pests before pesticides came around? And we started getting a variety of answers on how best to tackle the problem. And that is one example of how we actually trying to pick tacit knowledge from the ground. So what else do we require? We need a culture of trust. We also need a psychological safety because of the interclan issues that are really affecting the Somali community. We need to establish a network of trust that will be able to pick up knowledge from the ground. We also need time and space. In addition to what the field officer has going to do, we need to give them time and space to be able to gather some of this information just the way I have mentioned. There is also a little bit of a clash between modernity and the traditional way of doing things. So we need to have a way of transferring this knowledge from the traditional communities to the modern communities in the Somali context. Modern in that these ones have gone to the classrooms, they have gone through classroom instructions, and these ones have gone to the classroom of life, where they have picked up their knowledge the hard way. So that the young people are able to recognize how things were being done before and how it has worked and how possibly it can work for them now. it is a very important thing. How is SADO making use of this? We are trying to recognize that there is a lot of knowledge out there that we need to pick from the ground. Therefore, we are at the point of recognition. After recognition, we need to accept the fact that it is not only the way we think, but also the way the people on the ground have been handling this. So we have been having some reflection sessions. I have mentioned, for example, the one we wanted to deal with the pesticides. And we have agreed that neem tree is a possible solution. And we left the stuff on the ground to pursue that and use that as an alternative to the chemical pesticides that are bought on the market. So those are my quick response to those questions, unless I have left out something. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Juliet, I have one question for you. I think it's linked to what you're talking about, championing tacit knowledge. So the question is, how can we make the case for tacit knowledge to be valued alongside other forms of evidence in the humanitarian sector, particularly given the efforts underway at the moment around a reset and reform?
Great, thank you. Yes, so I mean, I think we need more studies like these. I think that there is, tacit knowledge is how most of the tacit learning is how most learning is done in the humanitarian sector, but it's largely visible and unrecognised and unsupported. And the question is really, how can the humanitarian sector and the humanitarian actors shift their practices and cultures in order to better foster what happens quite naturally if you get out of the way and let it happen. And I think that there is quite a lot that still isn't known or isn't drawn together. For example, around spaces. I mean, how do you create trusted, safe learning spaces in different contexts? And I think there are pockets of really good learning, but they haven't come together into a stronger narrative. And the informal pathways of learning are also important, to better understand and furnish those. So I think that's one thing. But I think having a better evidence base needs two other things. It needs a collective voice who are coming together and saying it's important. And that means a range of actors. There's a very strong Somali conversation here, but actually it needs a broader range of humanitarians from across the sector. And importantly, it needs the traditional knowledge producers, who are like many of the northern ones, to also be ready to step back and step out of the space and cede power, as in the same argument with other forms of localization, and not just as a lip service, not just as a, well, now we're working with local partners and therefore we're localized narrative, but actually be ready to step back and cede space to other forms of knowledge in a way that's well supported. But I think this kind of current reform does offer opportunities because the power dynamics are shifting somewhat. Nobody knows quite how, but it is potentially giving more space to the strong locally led narrative that is coming through. What I think hasn't been done is I don't think that knowledge production and knowledge equity are being very present or as present as they could be within those discussions. And that's probably what we need to do a bit more. I'm not sure if I'm... Oh, and I loved what Mohammed Hussein was saying earlier about budget. Oh, budget is where the truth is. If you believe in something, put some money on it. And I think that that's a very tangible thing that we could all be asking for.
Thank you so much, Juliet, for that. I think there's one more question, Peter, to you. What guidance would you give to donors for how they can help create spaces for learning via tacit knowledge and adapting programs? So guidance to the donors.
Yeah, am I unmuted?
We hear you, go ahead.
Yeah. On the tacit knowledge, creating spaces, it might not be called tacit knowledge, but there is space within the budgets for meal. It's just that we need to be clear that learning in meal programs is not about quantitative figures and about accountability to the donors. And I think that in my interactions in the last few years with FCDO, with the Germans and many other donors, that they are very open to having a discussion about a different way of doing learning. I think the most difficult thing with donors is how to develop a program that is adaptable, how to make it as even in the budgets, not just kind of surge payments for anticipatory action, but how to actually structure the program to be adaptable. We spent a lot of time in the last 10 years working on adaptive learning, and we get tremendous reaction from governments, from the NGOs, from the organizations that we're working with once they realize the potential of tacit knowledge and learning. But they have a big struggle with turning that learning into adaptation and continuous adaptation. So that, for me, is the place where we need to come together and we need to think about how we can make budgets and partnerships with donors much more flexible and able to change with the rapidly changing context. And I think that that's probably even more important than some of the things that we constantly say in our communications about needing multi-year funding or needing some kind of stability in the funding. We're heading into a period where complexity and uncertainty are increasing exponentially. And if we can't have programs that can learn and adapt, then we're going to increasingly be dropping backwards. So for me, that's the place where we need to be concentrating right now. And then I think the donors themselves also need to be facilitated to understand what tacit knowledge is and the value of tacit knowledge. So including them in your own tacit knowledge type spaces is a great way of building trust, is a great way of getting their understanding of the value of having those things happening. Often we think of the donors as something pretty scary that we wouldn't want to include. But actually, when you get them into those spaces, then things move much faster and much easier once they understand the value of what you're doing. Back to you, Lena.
Thank you. Thank you. We are almost coming to the end, but I have two last questions directed to the learning partners. So Mohammed Ibrahim, you had talked a lot about the importance of surfacing tacit knowledge. So there's a question here about could you say something about the importance of unearthing or explicating tacit knowledge? Mohammed Ibrahim, you there? Or any learning partner, either from MCAN, feel like they want to share that?
Lena,
yeah, Mohammed Ibrahim, go ahead. Okay, so the question.
Come on, go in the question.
Okay, so you talked, I remember in your parting shot, you had talked about something about the importance of surfacing tacit knowledge. So there's a question here about, thanks for this insightful webinar, tacit assumptions, if an examine, can be barrier to program success. Could you say something about the importance of unearthing or explicating tacit knowledge? I think it means bringing it, talking about it or bringing it, giving it the importance it needs. Over to you, Mohammed.
Yes. Thanks, Lena, and thanks for the questions. We talked about tacit knowledge must be surfaced. It's meaning that it requires, first of all, time, energy, and also resources, and also the commitment from those who want to take forward for tacit learning as it is in mainstreaming its programs. So with all the combined efforts, the tacit knowledge requires that can be, I mean, realized in its not simplest, but its earliest fruits or earliest deliveries, so that with that, I think what we need is just to have that value of tacit knowledge and sharing within across the board, and not keeping us organizations or those who are in this space to themselves. I think that helps.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. I'm cognizant that we have about 7 minutes before the end. We will see if there's any more questions. I think we've tried to answer as much. There was a question on whether the modules, the learning insights, can be used to replicate the workshops or sharing of tacit knowledge in your organizations. I would say partly there's a lot of information there. I think the links have been shared. However, as Peter will just say in the last minute, we're also exploring the next steps on tacit knowledge, and there's a possibility of actually coming up with maybe modules or something that would be more curated to the context and to the people we work with. So with that, I would like to invite Peter to discuss a little bit the next steps and vote of thanks. Over to you, Peter.
Very quickly, we're aiming to disseminate more the insights, get them in to Somali dialects, but also spread them outside of throughout Somalia through local NGO networks in particular, such as Nexus and the Somali Humanitarian Hub. But we're also developing some tacit knowledge modules. Those are really aimed at helping you to build your facilitation skills to allow tacit knowledge to be used better in whatever space you're working in. They're designed to be very simple, more about principles than about tools, and they're designed for someone like us or other learning organizations to be able to very quickly hand over some of those facilitation skills and some of those thinkings about what tacit knowledge is and how you transfer that into action. So we hope to have those out later in the year, and we are always open to you contacting us directly, and we can start talking to you a little bit about how we can help, not necessarily through contracts, but just really how we can help you with bringing tacit knowledge into your programming. So then I'll just, as quickly as I can, and I'm sure I'm going to miss out people, I just want to thank everybody, starting with the attendees, for staying on for a little bit longer than usual in a webinar. And I'd like to also thank, in particular, the NGOs in Somalia. I think if you remember back before all of the turmoil started, it was a very exciting moment to realize the value of tacit knowledge within your consortia, and also to suddenly have a moment where you could talk frankly to each other, you could manage the power, and you could use tacit knowledge to make your consortium better from your different perspectives. I'm hoping that you'll pick that up in the near future. Thank you to UKHIH and to UKAID. This is really something that is unusual to be funded to do this type of project. And it's extremely important in places like Somalia, but also Sudan or South Sudan, to name a few. So thank you for that, and thank you for all your support, especially Adrian. Without you, we would have been a lot less excited and happy about what we were doing. And then finally, thanks to Lena, to Ifra, and to Sophie for making this happen, for working beyond the hours in the contracts, and for making the whole project a real success. So thanks to all, and if I've forgotten you, I'm really sorry, but I am thinking about you. Back to you, Lena.
So I think for me is to appreciate everyone. I know 2 hours is a lot to give and to sacrifice with all that's going to the back end. But we want to thank you for staying with us till the end. On the screen now you can see our links, how you can contact us, and thank you so much for making this very productive session.